a PowerPoint that's full of BS from Children's Health Defense. Children's Health Defense, while sounds official, is a conspiracy websites. COVID vaccine has become central to getting back to normal. That is true. It is true. Hijacking of the amygdala by fear. Nobody is telling you to be scared of those things. Like, no. I cannot process the BS in that one slide. Will this be a rushed vaccine? The vaccine regulatory agencies have economic interest in approving a disseminated vaccine, and this conflict of interest can motivate agencies and leadership to rush vaccines to the market. Rushing vaccines can be very dangerous, even if the economic interests. Endangering customers and killing them is not a good business model. So this isn't a rushed vaccine. No corners have been cut. It's just lots more people wanted to take the vaccine, and lots of fundings, and coronavirus is a familiar family. The public health authorities and vaccine manufacturers are scrambling to reassure the public regarding vaccine safety. I wouldn't say scrambling, but you're trying to make it sound bad, so of course you put it in there. However, an examination by Children's Health Defense, an examination by conspiracy theorists, wow, that's so effective, wow, was that there are outstanding problems in the assessment of vaccine safety that pertain not only to the COVID-19 vaccine candidates, but to existing approved vaccines as well. I notice that they use big words, like they're being very formal. They're trying to make the point look more nice and formal. But if you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. Oh, this is their demands for vaccines, by the way. The vaccine will be tested against a true placebo. Yeah, however, it is not ethical to use inert saline, because if half the participants get immunity against COVID and the other half don't get any health benefits, any immunity against any viruses at all, then that's really ethical. Plus the sore arm would go away after 1 hour, which would ruin the placebo effect, because saline is like that. Usually in vaccines, the soreness in the arm lasts to 2 days. A safe vaccine will be tested for a long enough period to properly track adverse events. In addition, post-approval surveys will be conducted to measure long-term effects. An adverse event happening years after a vaccine is unheard of. And adverse events maximum to happen is 2 months. But there's always a trade safely, and you do, which is, I keep on messing up. Okay, by the way, it's like 11 p.m. MD, so that's why I'm messing up my words. Yeah, you do know that that Pfizer are already following healthcare workers closely to monitor and surveil. You do know that, right? Why post-approval surveys are so necessary? Over the last 5 years, the vaccine's adverse event report system has recorded an average of 45,000 adverse events a year. Keyword is adverse events. Adverse is not that serious, right? Because it's soreness in the arm, tiredness, rashes, mild fever. That's not serious. It's not life-threatening. Serious adverse events are rare, but what you should be worried about. But you most likely will not get a serious adverse event. Experimental mRNA and DNA gene technology undergo years of testing before being used to the public. mRNA vaccines have been around since the 1990s. However, COVID vaccine is actually the first mRNA vaccine to be effective. The unforeseeable of the consequences of these experimentations may take years to manifest. You do know that the mRNA is destroyed? The mRNA that gives instructions to your cell to produce a spike protein is destroyed, right? After a couple of days, it never reaches the nucleus even. And this isn't an experimentation. They're not experimenting the whole populations. Again, mRNA is not new. mRNA vaccines are not new. Note regarding COVID vaccine candidates: Moderna, Pfizer, and BioNTech are using mRNA technology. Vaccines should be free of mercury, aluminum, and nanometals. We have 240 studies showing that mercury is not safe. There are no safety studies that show that it's safe when used as a vaccine. It may be because it's called thimerosal, and thimerosal is ethyl mercury, which is not toxic. Methyl mercury is toxic, which anti-vaxxers confuse it with. But ethyl mercury is not toxic, especially in such a low dose. And yes, mercury is removed from most vaccines. However, it is present in flu vaccines. Again, dose is low. Aluminum is a known neurotoxin, which can induce neurodevelopment disorders, brain inflammation, and autoimmune conditions. But it's in such a low dose that it's negligible. A 2-month-old infant following the CDC schedule can receive a single-day dose of aluminum that exceeds the FDA maximum allowable dose by more than 50 times. Yeah, but a study I found said that if an infant, even after taking a vaccine, right, and they eat their foods, right, and you eat more aluminum than is in a vaccine, right, and in the week, the limit of how much aluminum you should eat still is not exceeded, even when that infant takes the vaccine. A 2017 Italian study showed that nearly all vaccines come in nanometals, but the dose is so low that it's negligible. And remember, take your flu vaccine every year. Note regarding COVID vaccine candidates: the presence of PEG could trigger serious adverse immune response that can result in anaphylaxis. A percent of that group having high levels of these antibodies against PEG, putting them at risk of anaphylaxis. So, yeah, this is like a study of PEG antibodies. However, this is a risk. It's not 100% certain. And most likely there'll be enough people that will not get anaphylaxis from it for herd immunity to work. Vaccines should be free of avian, bovine, porcine, and monkey and mouse viruses. Dr. AstraZeneca candidate using a chimp adenovirus spliced with other proteins. By the way, adenovirus vectors, while it may sound scary and bad because we associate virus with being sick, it's actually one of the most safe vaccines options out there. Vaccines are often produced in animal serum and are therefore contaminated with other retrovirus from other animal species. Most of the time, it's just the DNA of these. I sneezed them out. It's just the DNA of these viruses, and this DNA of these viruses, the instructions of these viruses, never actually reach your cell and die. So it's nothing to be worried about. And most of the time, it's like zoonotic disease. So anyway, even if the DNA of the virus, like there was a case where 1 million children got vaccinated against a certain virus, and there is pig virus DNA in it, right? But it didn't affect the children. So this is nothing that you should be worried about. You should still take your your vaccines. I shouldn't record this in light now. Many of these viruses, such as SV40, have been shown to be cancer-causing when introduced to the human body. Yeah, but that virus has not been present in vaccines in the 1960s. But the fact of the matter is that there are even better methods of producing vaccines, which do not require animal serum cultures. It bears noting that SARS-CoV-2 is an animal virus that allegedly originated in bats. Okay. Vaccines should be free of human DNA and aborted fetal tissue. So what sort of health defense is saying like, oh, there's like slight contaminants from that fetus, that means that it's a vaccine's bad. No, DNA, human DNA cannot survive for a while outside a nucleus of a cell or outside a cell. It's very unstable actually, and so it will most likely like die, that DNA, so it's nothing to be worried about. But Children Health Defense are trying to make you worried about it, which is really ironic, because earlier they were like saying the masks cause fear of normal day-to-day things. Like you should be free of biochips and nanotechnology agents. Biochips and nanotechnology agents should be introduced in the body via vaccines for the purpose of creating community interface with your person's biology, physiology, psychology, and outside technologies. This is a new frontier being explored by the tech companies and military research industry. Only data that more than 70% of the American public is against this emerging biotech, nanotech, and gene editing in humans. This vaccine, COVID-19, will be biochip free. They will not vaccinate with biochips under your consent. However, there is FDA approved. However, these are used to monitor like blood sugar and heartbeats, not to change your genes. And they're not in the vaccine anyway. Liability protection product of vaccine makers creates perceived incentives to rush the vaccine and ignore safety concerns. This is simply not true. You can sue a vaccine manufacturer over a proper vaccine, but you left that part out because that will ruin your point. Yeah, if it's a proper vaccine, you can actually sue the vaccine manufacturers over it, but it's a proper vaccine. So even with this law, they cannot rush it. I don't get it, you conspiracy theorists. They're like, a vaccine cannot be a vaccine cannot be for everyone because everybody's body is different. But a minority of the population gets injured by vaccines. Like, that means vaccines are dangerous for everyone. Like, at least try to be consistent. Moderna therapeutics, they're talking about the candidates, by the way. And in the first phase of human trials, 100% of participants in the medium and high dose groups had some form of adverse events. 21% of the participants in the high dose group had a serious adverse events. Yeah, and one of those guys who got a serious adverse event said, do not let that deter you. Also, like, just to let you know, like, the phase 1 was to figure out what was the right dose for humans for it to be safe. So, like, do not use the phase 1 trial as a reason to not take the vaccine. BioNTech and Pfizer in phase 2 and 3 trials, mRNA technology working. No second dose was given in one trial to unsatisfactory tolerability. I could not find this trial you speak of, but even if it is a real trial, they probably improved the vaccine to be safer. AstraZeneca and Oxford Center trials were suspended temporarily to two severe adverse events, one in the case of transaminitis and one in the case of multiple sclerosis, which has since been dismissed as coincidental. Use of a genetically engineered chip adenovirus, the meningitis virus, documented to have some of the most pronounced side effects, was used as a placebo. So yeah, I think it was still suspended when they were writing this, but now it's been resumed in both UK and USA. So that means that they reviewed their vaccine and realized that it is safe. So yeah, I do know viral vectors. They work by like replacing what the cells what the companies want the cells to produce. In this case, it's spike protein. So they replace a part of the virus DNA with the spike protein instructions. They also weaken the adenovirus, because infecting you with an adenovirus is not a very good vaccine model, is it? They also weaken the virus. It's just used as a way to get it into your cell, and it's actually one of the most safest options out there for a vaccine. That doesn't mean the other vaccine options are dangerous, by the way. So please do not take this out of context. About transducer myelitis. Transducer myelitis is an inflammatory disease process of the spinal cord. By the way, we talk about this as a side effect. It is a common vaccine. It's a rare vaccine side effect. You're just straight up making stuff up now. Johnson & Johnson, genetic splicing of adenovirus with coronavirus spike protein. That's the same as AstraZeneca. Why didn't you say that for AstraZeneca also? You know what? Whatever. Sanofi vaccine. Sanofi killing. I'm very bad at pronouncing stuff like this. Vaccine. Use of a genetically engineered virus. It's a protein-based virus. Basically, their vaccine is a spike protein inside their COVID vaccine. This is not to scale, by the way. Immune resiliency. So, like these things, vitamin D levels, up generous vitamin C. I should actually do those things. I should actually do this. These are good for your health. However, they're not going to build immunity like a vaccine will. Taking vitamin C will not build immunity against measles. And taking vitamin C omega-3 pills and having good relationship did not eradicate smallpox. The public demands a safe COVID-19 vaccine. That's the first step, and it is safe. Like, you're just demanding for a thing that already exists. What many really want is a safe vaccination for program for everybody, for you and me, and for your children, for your grandchildren. I think what they mean is like serious adverse events should be a thing. That is unfortunately right now impossible. It is a good intent, but it is unfortunately possible because allergies will always be a thing. And some people's bodies, a minority of the population bodies, their bodies will make the vaccine will have a serious adverse events. While it is a nice wish, it's probably unlikely and will not happen in your lifetime. Maybe, I don't know, in the distant future. We at CRT have been looking at vaccine safety issues in here, and there are legitimate scientific concerns that need to be addressed. Yes, and these scientific concerns you speak of are already, you just took them from the medical and public health. Like, you say you want them to address them, like, you just took those serious adverse events from them, like, they're not even trying to be consistent anymore. Vaccines should be subjugated to a scientifically rigorous approval process that addresses all the points of concerns that were just raised. Yes, and it is. It is, in the way you're just asking for non-existent things. We need to remove conflicts of interest from those who are involved in the vaccine approval process. This needs to be separated with those making vaccine varieties and those looking at the vaccine safety issue. There's separation. It's a team. Like, it's a job in the, like, for example, Pfizer, they investigated, they have a team of employees. And even if they just got a bunch of people, bunch of scientists who know about it, you probably still will not trust them, even if they're not from Pfizer. There's just no winning with you. We need acknowledgement from both medical public authorities of vaccine injury exists, and that clear steps will be taken to investigate the causes. The denial of vaccine injury by authorities in order to protect public health policy, the vaccine program, is grossly unethical. They're not denying vaccine injuries. You just got examples of vaccine injuries from them. And I think they're talking about like some things like multiple sclerosis, which have been coincidental and stuff. Listen, let's say it's 2018 when there was no pandemic, and I have 500 people, right? Some of those people get heart attacks, will be diagnosed with cancer. That's not the fault of the high five. We need systems that can actually measure the true extent of vaccine adverse effects of vaccine injuring the public. The existing statement is adequate to safeguard the vaccine trust. The existing systems, yeah, but again, serious adverse events are rare and are noted. But it's still rare. Plus, adverse events are again not serious. You know the difference between those two, and you're still trying to make adverse events sound bad. The government needs to support the fully informed consent and individual rights to refuse vaccination. This is an inalienable right that neither government nor public health authority take away. Government guaranteed immunity for vaccine makers must be resigned. If a vaccine manufacturer can offer vaccine without liability protection, then it has no right to offer one at all. As refusing a vaccine, while you can do it, it is not a very good option. For example, like back in Salmonella, measles cases went up. Yeah, because they refused to take the measles vaccine. Conservative measures for encouraging vaccination, such as restricting government benefits, access to public school, and the right to travel, also have no place in free societies. Yeah, but like if you are able to take COVID vaccine, and you just travel around, you will just spread COVID more to people who are unable to take the vaccine, like babies, or like people who will get a serious allergic reaction. Plus, it's not. I don't think they'll ever force you to take it. Like they will not just like kidnap you to take it. Like what dystopian society is that? These concerns can and must be addressed. We at CHU will like to charge a like-minded organization push for these safety. Vaccines are already safe. We're asking for stuff that already exists. And please remember, there are outstanding safety concerns that need to be addressed. There are 10 millions of you who think like you do about this issue. Ultimately, you have the right to decide whether to take the COVID vaccine or not. I wouldn't say tens of millions, but like, I think at least like 30 million anti-vaxxers. Yeah, anti-vaxxers is unfortunately a very big community. Anyway, join me next week where we debunk Multi Tom Tom, who's making quite the bold claims.